Before we begin our next topic, the multiplication rule, let's review what we've learned so far about how to calculate probabilities. The techniques for finding probabilities that we've discussed so far are, number one, through observation, and we called this the relative frequency method or approach. And what that means is how many times did our event occur relative to the number of times we observed. So remember, this was the probability of an event A is equal to the number of times A occurred over the number of times the procedure was repeated. Okay, that ratio. All right, another method that we talked about was the equally likely outcomes method. Equally likely outcomes. And we called this the classical approach. So the probability of event A here is equal to the number of ways A can occur all over the total number of outcomes possible, or we called that the number of simple events in the sample space. The number of, I'll just say, possible outcomes here. But that would be the same thing as the number of simple events in the sample space. Number of possible outcomes. Okay, so that's when we know something, we can develop our sample space and determine the number of ways, for example, to have at least 2 girls, or the number of ways we can get an odd when rolling a fair die. Okay. We've also seen how we can compute a probability using complements. And there we said we can find the probability of event A by taking 1 minus the probability of the complement of A. Okay, and then we also saw the addition rule. Now we're talking about the probability of event A or event B. That word or is our clue that this is the addition rule. Probability of A plus the probability of B minus the probability of A and B. We said that's important because if the events are not disjoint, you will have double counted here. If they're disjoint, we can just strictly add the 2 probabilities together. However, we don't want to always assume events are disjoint. We need to consider that there may be some overlap and we have double counted, and we need to make the correction for that. So now that gets us to our topic for this video, which is the multiplication rule. And we've kind of already looked at it, but only really in contingency tables, but we'll see other ways to look at this now. And that is the probability of A and B. So we need to know how to calculate that. Okay. And that would be, as we've seen here, the probability of A occurring and B occurring.